There is a history of European noblewomen collecting art dating back to the Italian Renaissance, with some notable examples throughout the following centuries being Isabella d'Este and Margaret of Austria. France was no exception to the presence of female collectors and matronage, or women commissioning art, as Marie Antoinette commissioned a number of portraits of herself by another woman, Elizabeth Vigée Lebrun. The painting Interior with Young Woman Tracing a Flower by French artist Louise Adéone Drölling is an example of a work by a female artist later entering the collection of a female aristocrat, the Duchess de Berry. This work was created by, belonged to, and depicted women involved in the arts, emphasizing the important role that women had in artistic production and collection in 19th century France. The painting depicts a young woman, possibly the artist herself, tracing an engraving of a tulip at a window. The woman is surrounded by objects implying artistic production, such as common genre or still life props, like a plaster bust, a guitar, and a vase of flowers, as well as a portfolio possibly containing other sketches or engravings, and a crumpled piece of paper on the floor, perhaps a failed earlier tracing. The painting is of a female artist by a female artist, giving insight into what the informal artistic education available to women during this period looked like, as the Paris École des Beaux-Arts had not yet begun admitting women as students. The inclusion of a pet squirrel on the arm of the chair opposite the young woman may reveal the characteristics Drölling believed a female artist must have in order to succeed, as the animal symbolizes patience, diligence, and perseverance. The scene represented in Drolling's Interior with Young Woman Tracing a Flower gives a sense of what it was like for female artists in France to study in the early 19th century, and emphasizes the self-reliance necessary to be a woman in the art world. The young woman works alone in an interior space, possibly her family home, rather than in a studio or in a formal setting with other students, like male students would be. It would not be until 1897 that the École des Beaux-Arts finally opened competition for entry to women, and until 1903 for the Prix de Rome to do the same, a time when the influence of institutions of official art had waned significantly. As a result, until that time, it was up to women to advocate for themselves and learn art on their own without the formal education institutions behind them. Not only does the subject within Drölling's painting allude to the realities of life as a woman artist, but the genre of the painting and the rest of Drölling's works also fits within the context of exclusion from a formal artistic education. Because of women's prohibition from painting from the live male nude, they were barred from painting the history genre, which so often depicted the heroic male nude, or required an extensive knowledge of the anatomy of the male nude. Unable to paint the highest genre of painting, women were forced to resort to the next best thing, primarily focusing on portraits or genre scenes. In the case of Catherine Reed, a pastel portrait artist who was matronized by Queen Charlotte of England, it was even noted by one of her male patrons that she would shine wonderfully in history painting, if not for the restrictions her sex obliges her to be under, forcing her to confine herself to portraits, revealing the negative opinions of some towards women's exclusion from the institutions of official art. Because many women artists had to confine themselves to portraits, it was also very common for these women to paint self-portraits, as they could always rely themselves to be available for sittings. Additionally, because of the lack of access to official artistic education and the models that these institutions could afford, women working in private studios could paint themselves for practice before, if they were lucky, being commissioned by someone to paint their portrait. In one of her personal letters, Drölling mentions a gold medal awarded to Interior with Young Woman Tracing a Flower at the 1824 Paris Salon, as well as its owner, the Duchess de Berry. The Duchess de Berry was an avid patron of the arts, who amassed a large collection of paintings. She also sponsored theaters she attended and had one of the most admired libraries of her time. The granddaughter of Queen Maria Carolina of Naples, herself a frequent matron of women artists, including Angelica Kauffman, the Duchess de Berry might have found the act of matronage to be normalized and wanted to follow in her grandmother's footsteps, aligning herself with the powerful aristocratic women in politics before her through her similar collection of art and matronage of female artists. These slightly earlier queens had significant political influence due to the shortcomings of their husbands when it came to ruling in a time when the French and American revolutions were causing temporary changes in gender roles, as women took over the jobs men left behind when they went to fight. Aristocratic women may have chosen to matronize female artists as an acknowledgement of their similar circumstances, as women doing work in the male-dominated spheres of art or politics. This tradition of matronage of women artists provided one way for women to make a name for themselves in the art world without the backing of official institutions, and a way for aristocratic women to use their power and influence to advance the careers of promising artists who had experienced a similar struggle as a woman in a male-dominated profession. The subject matter, genre, and symbolism of Drolling's painting indicates the difficulties women in the art world had in making a name for themselves, providing insight into the practices of women artists in early 19th century France. Additionally, the collection of the Duchess de Berry, which contained the Drolling painting, contributes to the tradition of aristocratic and royal women in Europe, not only amassing diverse and respected collections, but also being the matrons of women artists, a tradition that gained significant traction at the end of the 18th century. The roles of women in both artistic collection and production in 19th century Europe cannot be overlooked, and the figures of the Duchess de Berry and Louise Adéone Drölling exemplify the significant achievements women made in painting and collecting, despite the challenges they were forced to face solely because of their gender.